Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Matt Morris, and today I will be explaining what Latin jazz is. What is Latin jazz? Latin jazz, also known as Afro-Cuban jazz, is a style of music that fuses percussion instruments from the Cuba and the Spanish Caribbean with jazz. It also blends the musical elements from Cuba and the Spanish Caribbean. The jazz style was a product of the long interaction between the American and Cuban music styles. In the early 20th century, Latin American music created the first form of jazz. This was in New Orleans. This new style of music consisted of a distinctive syncopated rhythmic character. Again, in the early 20th century, several American musicians started to use the Cuban Habanera rhythm in their pieces. One of the most famous ones being the St. Louis Blues by W.C. Handy. Latin jazz involves many different rhythms and scales. There are many different rhythms for Latin jazz, but some of the most common ones used are the son clave and rumba clave rhythms. These rhythms are used to split the music into a sort of 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2 feel. Some of the different types of scales used in Latin jazz are Mixolydian, Lydian, Dorian, and Aeolian. These are some of the most commonly used scales, but there are many more. These scales work specifically well with jazz due to their major and minor properties. Creation of Latin jazz. Leading up to the 1940s, Latin American melodies had spread up to the north into the US, while the jazz style had spread through the Caribbean, Central and South America. Over the coming years, both regions had familiarized themselves with these styles. The large bands of that area then expanded their repertoire to include rumbas and congas. These are both types of Afro-Cuban dance. The embracement of the cultures then laid the foundation for the blend of jazz and Cuban music. In 1940, Cuban-born trumpeter Mario Barza performed his tune "The Tanga," which is one of the Macchiato Orchestra's greatest hits. Jazz critics that were at the performance called it one of the first true examples of Latin jazz. Some of the major contributors to the different styles of Latin jazz were Tito Puente, who earned the nickname King of Mambo after a string of mambo dance hits in the 1950s, Gato Barbieri, who won a Grammy for his hit film The Last Tango in Paris, and Bebo Valdez, who was a Cuban-born pianist that had major influence on the Cuban music scene after World War II. Where is Latin jazz today? Latin jazz has a wide variety of different artists and styles today, with the main performers and artists playing Afro-Cuban jazz, which includes many ostinatos and clave patterns, and Afro-Brazilian jazz, which includes bossa nova and jazz samba. For example, the bossa nova is a style of Brazilian music. It involves a fusion of samba and jazz, and it is mainly made up of major, minor 7th, and extended 13th chords. This gives it its exclusive jazzy characteristics. Its growth to popularity began in the 1960s among young musicians and jazz bands. It's swung and is played with ostinatos normally in the lower instruments. I will now play a good example of a basic bossa nova ostinato on piano. An example of a popular Latin jazz artist is Joao Gilberto. Joao was born from a Brazilian background. He was also one of the first people to play and write in the bossa nova style. He is also given credit for the creation of bossa nova. His music is very bassy and pleasant to listen to. Thank you all for listening. I hope you enjoyed. Sorry, Mr. Helps, I probably butchered a lot of the pronunciation.